Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing fine. Welcome to the webinar, Stories from the Use Case Observatory, Volume 2. The objective of this webinar is to inform you about the Use Case Observatory research and illustrate the economic impact open data has on European society. Before we start, let me quickly run through the rules of the game. The webinar will be recorded, and we will share that later via our channels, for instance, YouTube. There's also a chat function available for you to ask us questions related to the topics. And we will collect your questions, and there are moments, especially at the end of this webinar, where we will have a Q&A session with the speakers, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Additionally, the slides will also be shared with you afterwards, so don't you worry about that. And finally, we would highly appreciate your feedback. So if you would help us to improve even more, then at the end of this presentation, we will share a QR code, and we would highly appreciate your feedback on this webinar. So now, having that said, the rules of the game, let's move to the introduction of the speakers. And first, let's start with Juan Jesus Alcolea Picaro. He's educated in computer engineering at the Polytechnic University of Madrid, with a master in international university management from the University of Alcalá. Juan Jesus has held various roles over the past 25 years. And they were all linked to the analytical exploitation of data. Many of the roles he has been involved in were in the university sector, where he played a significant part in the dissemination and consolidation of institutional intelligence as a strategic organizational capability within higher education. And it was in 2015 that he founded Diametrical, which is a startup specializing in advanced data analysis for universities. And at Diametrical, he leads various projects related to dropout prevention based on predictive models, academic analytics, and open data. Now over to Manon Corneille. Driven by her passion for food and sustainability, Manon joined Open Food Facts as a partnerships manager. And in this role, she collaborates with brands to share data and spearheads international development efforts within the organization. A staunch advocate for open source initiatives, Manon believes in their power to drive innovation, inclusivity in society, and the paths towards a safer internet. Last but not least, my name is Dominique Nijssen. I'm one of the project leads of the data.europa.eu team, and I'm responsible for various deliverables under that umbrella. So I'm involved in various research activities, but also promotional activities when it comes to the reuse and uptake of open data. And I was also responsible for the delivery of the Use Case Observatory, the second edition. And that's why I was invited by my colleagues from the Data.Europa Academy to host this webinar. So that's, I guess, for the speakers. I think it is now time to slowly move into the content of this presentation. So what is on the menu for today? We have an agenda, and I already opened and introduced the webinar, the speakers. And then after that, I will provide you with an overview of the Use Case Observatory and highlights or insights from the second volume. And then I will give the floor to Juan Jesus, who will elaborate on the reuse case UniversiDATA-lab, on their open data-driven solutions and impact. And after Juan Jesus has elaborated on UniversiDATA-lab, I will give the floor to Manon Corneille, who will talk about open food facts on their open data-driven solution and impact. And as you see, there is room for Q&A. So please add your questions into the chat function. We will collect them all together and go over the questions. We'll answer them during the Q&A session. So what I want to share with you in the upcoming 15 minutes or so is I will introduce the report to you. I will also go over the methodology that we used in the first volume and elaborated upon in the second volume, and then provide an overview of also the other use cases, because in addition to these two use cases that have been presented, we have another set of them, and they also deserve some attention. And finally, I want to end with the main takeaways and conclusion of the report. So let's dive into the introduction to the report. So if you look at the report, the question I ask here is, what is the Use Case Observatory? Well, the Use Case Observatory is a research initiative led by the data.europa.eu team, and it focuses on economic, governmental, social, and environmental impact of open data. It is a research project that lasts for 3 years, from 2022 till 2025, and there will be regular reports, regular deliverables where we share and publish our findings. And in 2022, the first report was published, and in April of this year, the second volume has been published. So now that we know what the Use Case Observatory is, what are then the goals of the Use Case Observatory? Well, the broader goals of the Use Case Observatory are for data providers to demonstrate economic, societal, and policy-making benefits of open data, but also to encourage the provision and creation of high-quality open data. Well, the goals for the open data portal managers is to highlight the reuse cases with long-term growth and guiding strategic interactions with the developers and providers, so with the community. So these are the broader goals, but what are then the more specific goals of the Use Case Observatory? Well, the specific goals of the observatory, as we also call this research, is to answer the following research questions. So what is the economic, governmental, social, and environmental impact of open data for the specific reuse cases collected? How important is it to keep track of such reuse cases to understand and foster value creation through open data in Europe? And lastly, what else can we learn from analyzed reuse cases to improve open data measurements and the implementation across Europe? So these are the research questions. And in 2022, we already started with the first volume of the research. And there we also talked about economic, governmental, social, and environmental impact. So I also think it would be wise to explain a little bit more about these impact dimensions. So we created a table, and there you can see the impact dimension, the economic one. And the definition that we used is the economic impact dimension focuses on reuse cases that foster business creation, entrepreneurship, and the reskilling of workers. And one of the examples in the publication, for instance, is a platform that helps job seekers to find employment and professional opportunities. We also have, of course, the governmental impact dimension, and there we focus on reuse cases that enhance e-government support, increase government transparency, and improve accountability. In the current report, there's, for instance, an example of a system that facilitates more efficient and transparent public administration. When it comes to the social impact dimension, the reuse cases where we focus on are the use cases that improve public health, enhance data literacy, or foster inclusivity and combat inequality. So there we see examples, for instance, of a platform that promotes social integration and fights societal inequalities. And last but not least, the environmental impact dimension is the area where we focus, or the reuse cases in that impact dimension focus on the provision of environmentally friendly services and contribute to energy reduction and ecological preservation. There are 2 applications in the current publication that focus, for instance, on the monitoring of air quality, and that will then fall into the impact dimension of environmental impact. So now that we have a better understanding of what is the Use Case Observatory and what are the goals and objectives of the Use Case Observatory, I would like to also slightly walk you through the methodology. So how did we select the use cases and how did we go about when it comes to qualitative analysis? So how did we gather information about the reuse cases? Well, in 2022, we started with the identification of the reuse cases based on actually 3 data sources. The first one is the ODM, so the Open Data Maturity Assessment, which is an annual landscaping exercise providing examples from EU member states, EFTA, and other European countries. Also, previously there has been a EU Datathon, and that was a competition showcasing open data reuse across Europe. And there we connected with a lot of initiatives that were in the first iteration of the Use Case Observatory, but also in the second one. And last but not least, the data.europa.eu team also has a use case repository. It's a collection of reuse cases collected by the data.europa.eu team, and is also filled with submissions via the website's contact form. So these were the three data sources where we could identify reuse cases. So now that we have the data sources, then we of course also need to have a mechanism in place to shortlist all the different kind of reuse cases that were there. So initially we had 150 reuse cases that were initially shortlisted based on criteria such as recent awards, impact on disadvantaged groups, alignment with the European Commission priorities in the period of 2019 and 24. And with this list of 150 use cases, we contacted the developers via email and social media to ask them if they wanted to participate in the Use Case Observatory. And then at the end, a final selection of 30 reuse cases with willing developers was established. And there we started the first work on this observatory. So with these 30 reuse cases, we conducted semi-structured interviews, which means that we had a set of questions prepared, but also left room for discussions that might be interesting or would shine a different perspective or light on the matter. And after these interviews, we validated the interview transcripts with the interviewees, and that was then to be used for our qualitative analysis and report compilation. So that was for the first volume. So we continued also during the second volume with the same methodology, but we added a little bit here because we had already the use cases in place. So with the 30 reuse cases in mind, we did an exploratory scan. This means that we did some desk research to verify if these initial 30 reuse cases were still active. So we did an internet search, we searched social media, LinkedIn, to see if there was a sign of life when it comes to the reuse case. We also outreached to all the contact points of the reuse cases with another request to participate in the second edition of the Use Case Observatory. And some of the responses were diverse, ranging from, yes, immediately we want to work with you again. It was very interesting to work with you also in the previous volume, to no response at all. And some responses were that there was a maintenance of the reuse case, but nothing had been innovated or improved or changed over the course of a year. So they were happy to be contacted in the next year, but for now, some of the reuse cases were not willing to participate because there was no update from their side. So then we ended up with a limited number of 13 reuse cases, and these 13 reuse cases are in the second volume. So then again, we conducted semi-structured interviews and validated the transcripts to be used for analysis and report compilation. So that for the methodology. So as I said, in the volume 2 of the Use Case Observatory, there are 13 reuse cases. And I would like to share an overview of all the use cases. So here you see the impact dimensions, and you see the use cases that are part of that impact dimension. So if you look at the economic impact, there is one use case. It is called Naar Jobs in West Vlaanderen, or in English, To Jobs West Flanders. It's in Belgium. And this initiative helps people to find jobs close to them and lets users select whether they will travel by bike, car, or train. And the application also provides information on the transport option provided by the employers or the new employers. Then looking at the governmental impact dimension, there we have two use cases. The Dutch, Waar is mijn stemlokaal, or in English, Where is my polling station, is a platform that helps users find suitable polling stations very close to them. And citizens can also then find information about accessibility for people with specific disabilities. And during the Dutch elections, this is a platform that is heavily used by many people. Also, we have the Stadsregenskapet from Norway, which is a website that visualizes government spending and budgets. And its goal is to facilitate financial transparency and enable the public to easily find information about the spending of resources by government administrations. Then the biggest chunk of reuse cases in this volume is on the social impact dimension. And one of them is UniversiDATA-lab from Spain. And Juan Jesus has just elaborated on this reuse case. But there's more in this social impact. For instance, the VIS IME 360 coming from Italy, which explains Eurostat's data on visual impairment on a single informational website. And it also helps to allocate resources for medical aid. Another use case from Spain is tangible data. Very interesting use case that transforms the data from its digital context into a physical one by the creation of data sculptures in public space. And this helps people who lack certain digital skills to experience data in a completely different way. The EU Twinnings from the United Kingdom is a website that uses open data from Eurostat to make statistics accessible for a wider audience, and also show similarities between EU regions. Then we have the Open Food Facts from France. Manon just elaborated on this use case. And the sixth one within the social impact dimension is Integrate from Germany, which is a digital platform that provides newly arrived migrants and refugees with all the relevant information in several languages on a municipal level. Then the last impact dimension, the environmental one. There we find Digital Dryads, an application from Romania, which aims to protect forests from illegal deforestation in Europe by combining aerial and multispectral satellite imagery. We have also Air Quality in Cyprus, which provide residents with real-time information about several forms of air pollution. And Plantes in Spain also deals with the challenge of air pollution and relates this to the plants that are in the season, so they are blooming, and then you can find out whether or not this blooming might affect people with certain pollen allergies. And then the last one is coming from Germany as well, which is EnvironMate. It is an interactive platform to empower children with knowledge about climate change, and it is all based on scientific data. So as you see, there are 4 impact dimensions, and there are diverse set of use cases for these dimensions, and they all provide very interesting insights. So now that we're talking about insights, I would like to close off my presentation on the main takeaways and the concluding remarks of the report. So as you can see here, we took the impact dimensions, so the 4 impact dimensions and the main takeaways. So what did we learn from the impact when it comes to the economic impact? The lesson we learned is that there is open data initiatives, and they can play a very important role in supporting economic ecosystems by empowering businesses with valuable insights, but also put new employees or job-seeking community by promoting and sharing insights and data to them, information with them, and promote innovation, contributing to an overall economic resilience. The lesson we learned in the governmental impact dimension is that open data fosters trust in government by providing visibility. It also can leverage open data, or government can leverage open data to increase efficiency, but also respond to public needs and uphold accountability. And for the social impact, all the cases collectively highlighted the transformative social impact of open data initiatives, ranging from education and accessibility to inclusivity and support for diverse, often, I would say, vulnerable communities. With the environmental impact, the lesson that we learned is that open data can serve as a powerful tool by bridging technology and conservation efforts. By making environmental data accessible and actionable, these initiatives contribute to to the addressing of urgent environmental challenges. So the last one is the concluding remarks. So what are the more higher level highlights that we have in the second volume of the Use Case Observatory? Well, the paper highlights the high potential of open data reuse. Of the various reuse cases, we see that there's often an uptake of open data, for instance, from the open data portal data.europa.eu, but sometimes, as we also saw with Open Food Facts, is that some of these initiatives create their open data themselves, contributing to what we see as an open data community. The report also emphasizes that many organizations and applications depend on open data. And whereas we're now focusing only on the reuse cases that were selected in the previous volume, there are also signs that other organizations are using open data. It underscores also the need to unlock open data's broader impact on the economy, society, and environment. And it advocates for continued support for the reuse community to identify financial, not only financial, sometimes it's also collaborative growth opportunities. And that's the conclusion also from my presentation.
Okay, perfect. What is UniversiDATA? Well, UniversiDATA is a comprehensive open data publishing solution specifically designed for the university sector. It features a unique centralized publishing platform which is shared by all participating universities in the project. This initiative includes a standard specification for sector-specific data sets, a suite of value-added services, and these services cover most of the aspects of the data publishing process. For example, the automatic generation of data sets from the internal university data sources, the conversion to standard and specialized formats, for example, Open Fiscal Data Package for budgets, data set enrichment through tagging and geolocation, integration with third-party portals, and specifically with data.gov.es, which is the Spanish national open data portal. We also do content promotion through social networks and events like our annual Datathon, and give extensive user support for both publishers and data reusers. So what are the goals of UniversiDATA? The foundational objectives of this initiative are to enable universities to launch a quality open data initiative that is both effective and useful for the community of data reusers. Unlike what we call superficial portals, our aim is to provide homogeneous, well-documented data in standard formats, complete with an explicit publication schedule and responsive support channels. The initiative is designed specifically to avoid placing an unsustainable burden on universities, drawing from past experiences with very short-lived open data portals. So our approach tries to minimize the use of internal resources, both technical and human, by the participating universities. Well, UniversiDATA was launched in December 2020, and currently 6 public universities have joined the project, and they are publishing their data in a harmonized manner. Every university publishes the same data with the same formats and the same semantics. To date, over 1,000 data files have been published, and this means releasing several millions of data points. We expect more universities to join the initiative soon, and enriching the data repository and expanding the benefits of the UniversiDATA initiative. The key question for any open data project is data being reused? Well, fortunately, yes. The data published on UniversiDATA is actively being reused for a variety of purposes. For example, educational uses inside and outside Spain include undergraduate and master's thesis, exercises and practices in big data and data science classes. The data also informs decision-making processes for citizens, for example, new student admissions, and also in the private sector, for example, in market analysis processes for student housing companies. Additionally, the data supports research. In the slide, you can see a screenshot of a research paper, which is based solely on data published on UniversiData. This research paper was published in the Education Economics Journal. The data is also used for benchmarking by other universities in Spain, public administration supervision, data verification, and also in data journalism. Our UniversiDATA-lab initiative and the annual data fund have also sparked very creative reuses of data. Well, UniversiData is built on 4 key aspects. Firstly, multiple publishers contribute to a single portal with a shared data catalog. This significantly reduces the effort required by our users. Second, we prioritize the highest possible level of data detail, maximizing its value while also ensuring privacy through anonymization processes. Thirdly, all data is thoroughly documented. The documentation covers everything: formats, content, semantics, publishing schedules, APIs, sample applications, etc., etc. And lastly, practical examples of data reuse are showcased through our UniversiDATA-lab, demonstrating the potential and the value of the published data. And this brings us to the purpose of this presentation, which is UniversiDATA-lab, which is the initiative that was included in the Use Case Observatory report. So, UniversiDATA-lab is an initiative with 2 objectives, one informative and the other educational. This initiative provides practical examples with the goal of illustrating potential data reuse scenarios and showcasing the data's value in UniversiData. Of course, as a side result, by engaging ourselves in these activities, we gain a better understanding of the challenges faced by data reusers. Initially, the lab focused on static analysis of specific data sets from specific universities in specific years. But due to the high interest, the initiative evolved into a collection of both static analysis and dynamic data analysis applications that consumes UniversiData datasets in real time. So now, let's delve into some of the analysis and applications developed within the UniversiDATA-lab. By the way, all the analysis and all the applications we're about to see are freely available in the corresponding section of the portal. In the screenshot, you can see the relevant menu option pointed by a red arrow. So let's start our review. The first analysis is titled, "Has the pandemic reduced spending on travel?" This analysis tried to answer 3 questions. The first question is, we know that the pandemic had an impact on travel due to very well-known mobility restrictions. So the question is there any evidence of that impact in the budgets in the form of reduced travel-related expenses? Question number 2, if there is, can we quantify it, even approximately? Question 3, if a reduction in travel expenses is evident, has this been a temporary situation, or has the pandemic led to a reconsideration of the need for physical travel, and thus resulting in a permanent reduction in travel expenses and an evidence of a permanent change in habits? Well, what makes this analysis interesting, aside from the conclusions, is that it is conducted using one of the interactive applications that we'll cover later, the Budget Explorer or Budget Viewer. Therefore, in addition to offering an intriguing analysis, it also serves as a showcase and an example of how to use the application to conduct budget research. Next one. Next analysis is titled, "How far do students have to travel to get to class?" And it's basically an analysis of intercity commuting among students. In this analysis, we try to answer the following questions. How prevalent are intercity commuters to attend classes at a certain university? In this case, URJC, Universidad Rey Juan Carlos de Madrid. Question 2 is, what is the profile of these commutes? And by profile, I mean from which cities do students come from? Is the intercity origin of students highly concentrated or is it widely dispersed? How far do students have to travel? And question number 3, are there differences in the answers to the previous questions between the different campuses? URJC has 5 campuses in Madrid, and they are in very different geographic locations. So this analysis makes the most of 2 key aspects of the university data datasets. Namely, the data is provided at the highest level of detail, in this case at the student level. So since the data is geolocated, we take advantage of the fact that the cities, the municipalities of the students' family residences are geolocated, and the study centers are also geolocated. And thanks to this, we were able to calculate distances, conduct a distinct analysis for each campus, and projecting the results on different views, different graphs, like per campus box plots, as you can see in this screenshot, or interactive and searchable data tables, or more interestingly, interactive maps. An interesting consequence of this analysis was that when we published it, the other participating universities also wanted a similar analysis. And this helped us develop the concept of UniversiDATA-lab as interactive applications applicable to any participating university rather than static reports focused on a single case. Another interesting consequence is that this study on commuting and the municipalities where the students live attracted the attention of student housing companies, which began using UniversiData as a data source to conduct their own internal business analysis. Well, next one is analysis of students from a gender perspective. The questions that we try to answer in this analysis are how is the overall composition of the student population at a certain university, in this case UAM, Universidad Autónoma de Madrid, from a gender perspective? Is this composition uniform, or does it vary between cycles, fields of study, etc.? And can this composition be explained by the composition of the university-age general population, in this case in Madrid? Are there performance differences between men and women? Well, this analysis uncovered many interesting points. First, UAM is predominantly a female university. Women make up 60% of their students. But is this proportion homogeneous in every cycle? Well, yes, more or less. In bachelor's and master's degrees, the proportion remains almost the same. But in doctoral programs, the proportion of women decreases slightly, although they are still the majority. Now, can this composition be explained by the composition of Madrid's general population in university age groups? Well, no. In the screenshot, we can see at the left that male-female ratios are at 50-50 in all age groups in Madrid's general population, while at the right, we can see that the female prevalence is a constant in all age groups at UAM. So women are overrepresented in the student population of UAM compared to the general population of Madrid. Another not so surprising finding is that women are a minority in the field of engineering and architecture, accounting for only 24% of enrollments. Now, what is interesting, and you can see in the rightmost box plots, is that the efficiency rate is significantly better than that of men. That is, even though women are a minority, they perform substantially better than men in engineering and architecture. Next one is inbreeding analysis. By inbreeding, we understand the percentage of the teaching and research staff who teach at the same university where they defended their doctoral thesis. High inbreeding rates are considered above practice, okay? So the questions we want to answer is, what is the level of inbreeding at a certain university? In this case, again, URJC. How is this level of inbreeding evolving over time? in which institutions did URJC's PhDs obtain their doctorates? Well, the main conclusion of this study is that the level of inbreeding at URJC is significantly lower than the average level of Spanish universities. In this analysis, we received very interesting feedback that also led us to focus our efforts on dynamic applications rather than static analysis. A journalist asked if this same analysis was available for all the other participating universities in the project. So the interest in being able to apply the analysis we were publishing to all universities, both current and future, became very clear once we published this analysis. Next one is retirement forecast. Retirement forecast is the first data product that is not a static analysis, but a dynamic application. It uses the UniversiData API to read the available catalog. It identifies the most recent human resources data for every university and uses the data to conduct various analyses in real time. In the screenshot, you can see at the left, the university selector. For example, if a university started publishing data tomorrow in UniversiData, it would automatically appear in this selector and its data would be automatically included in the analysis with no additional effort at all. Now, the analysis carried out by this application can answer many interesting questions. For example, what is the age distribution of the staff by type and employment status? Or in which year can the highest number of retirements occur? Or how many employees will reach retirement age in the year 20 whatever? Or in which year will an X% of the current workforce have reached retirement age? Here, for example, we see the profile of the administrative staff of a certain university, in this case UCM, Universidad Complutense de Madrid, with age distribution by type of employment relationship, by gender, and some interesting age metrics. Here we can see a projection of the number of employees reaching retirement age, which in this case is configured as 65 years old, and the identification of the peak and the highest retirement increase years. Here, for example, we can see that 50% of the teaching staff will have reached retirement age by 2035, which is quite significant. Of course, this is not uniform across departments. Some departments may have a bigger generational replacement problem than others. For this, we have this chart. This heat map projects the percentage of retired staff of departments and years. Here, we see, for example, if we hover at the bottom of the chart, that 68% of the staff in the Department of Civil Law will have reached retirement age in 10 years. This is much over the average seen in the previous slide. On the other hand, if we hover the cursor at the top of the chart, we see that, for example, only 31% of the staff in the Department of Computer Architecture will have done so in the same year. And finally, the Budget Explorer, or Budget Viewer, is also a dynamic application that reads UniversiData's catalog in real time, but in this case, it scans for detailed budget datasets. As in the previous case, all analyses are done in real time, and any new university publishing budget data in UniversiData will be automatically included in the analysis with no additional effort. This application has been designed to help us answering very interesting questions. For example, how is the budget structure? Or how much did the university spend or receive under the category of X? Where X is not necessarily a single concept, but a dispersed collection of several concepts. Was the amount more or less than anticipated? How much? Or what is the significance of this expenditure or this revenue in the overall budget? What is its significance within its category? How has this expenditure or revenue evolved over the years? Now, one of the points that I would like to highlight is the documentation. Interpreting a public budget is not an easy task for someone who is not familiar with the subject. So we explain in the documentation what a public budget is, how it is structured, how to interpret it, how the budget items are classified, etc., etc. Why? Because although the application does the dirty work of accessing and analyzing the data, we consider it very important to take the opportunity to educate the citizen on the basic concepts that will enable him or her a more in-depth analysis of the budgets. Well, the first thing that we usually do when we start using the application is using the overview. The overview is a hierarchical visual representation of the budget that we can navigate. It is interactive to better understand the high-level structure of the budget. By hovering with the cursor over the chart, we can find, for example, that the expenditure on human resources accounted for about 63% of the university's total expenses. We also discovered that these expenses slightly exceeded the forecast, rising to about 103%. By the way, the graph supports budget navigation by drilling down. For example, if we click in supplies, we drill down to the specific supply section, and here we can see, for example, that electric energy accounts for 55% of the total supplies expenditure, and that it is less than expected, and 80% of what was initially expected, and that it represents 0.8% of the university's total expenditure. However, although this is a very interesting view, it is also a very local and aggregated view. Only the budget of a specific fiscal year. But what if we want to obtain a multi-year view and view the information classified by the different classification types allowed by public budgets? Well, to do this, we use the tab called Budget Item Finder. This tab allows us to quickly find the budget items we are interested in without needing to know which fields or at what levels they are specified. It is a real-time guided search. As you can see in the screenshot, as soon as I start typing, all the possible entries from anywhere in the budget at any level in any year are displayed in the list. So if we search, for example, for electric energy, we can see the evolution of all the budget items with this description at any level or field in the last 8 fiscal years, and classified by the 3 different possible ways. That is, what is spent on, the first chart, who spends it, the second chart, and for what purpose it is spent, third chart. By the way, the red area that you can see at the right in the 3 charts in the last 2 years means that there's still no execution data for those years in the data sets, so only forecasts are represented. If we hover the cursor over the charts, we can see the amounts of money. For example, in the second chart, that informs us of who spends the money in electric energy. We see that the amount of money spent on electric energy in a certain campus, Móstoles campus in this case, is whatever. But what if we want to know, for example, how the expenditure on electricity compares and has evolved over the years in just 2 specific campuses? Well, for this, we can use the detailed search, specify electricity in what field, specifying the 2 campuses we are interested in the who field, and select evolution lines in the type of chart selector. The screenshot shows the results of comparing the expenses of 2 specific campuses in electric energy. Finally, the application displays all the detailed data of all the budget items that have been used to calculate the charts in an interactive, searchable text. Okay, finally, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to promote the second edition of our datathon. The project submission deadline has just been extended to September the 20th. And anyone with tax residency in the European Union can participate. So I really encourage all attendees to consider joining. We have to apologize because the datathon page is only available in Spanish, but I believe that Google does a good job translating it. And that's all. I hope I haven't bored you too much and that you found something interesting in this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan Jesus, for your elaborate presentation. Very interesting to hear your use case. It's very interesting. So thanks for that. We saw some questions in the chat popping up already. So I think also the audience is very curious about what you just presented. I think for now, I'm back after my internet break, but let's move to the second reuse case. So Manon, I would like to give the floor to you and discuss about open food facts.
Okay, can you hear me? Wonderful. Thank you very much, Juan. That was not boring at all. Good presentation. Thank you. Now time to talk about open food facts. So I will organize my presentation, explain first who we are as a non-profit, then spend a bit more time on our impact, and then explain the projects we're working on at the moment and what's the plan for 2024. So let's jump to who we are. So Open Food Fact is a non-profit that was started a bit more than 10 years ago now, in 2012. And it was created in order to help consumers navigate and better understand how to choose food in the aisles, because today... Oh, cannot hear anything. Can people hear me?
I can hear you very well.
I
see more people.
Oh, okay. So it's probably a local
they
problem.
can hear you well, so please continue.
Okay, well, I'll try with my headphones. Maybe it's going to be better. So yeah, the goal was to digitalize all the information that you can see in the aisles so that people can consult product information directly on their smartphone so that they can compare products and make better informed decisions. So for example, today, all the information, the nutritional values and the ingredients, everything is written in very small characters, and it's quite difficult to make sense of it. So we decided to digitalize all the information and make it more visual and make it adapted to the users so that people can have a better understanding of how to choose their food. So our goal is to enable everyone, so consumers, but also researchers, food manufacturers, governments, to measure and transform the impact of food on both our health and on the planet. So more recently, we've shifted as well towards planet impact. So this is getting us busy. In short, our story, so we started in 2012. Then in 2015, we integrated the Nutri-Score. If you're not familiar with it, it's a score that rates the nutritional quality of food. It goes from A for the good products to E for the sweet and fat products. Then we integrated the NOVA classification, which judges the level of ultra-processing of food. In 2021, we looked a bit more into the environmental impact with the EcoScore. The name of the app is Open Food Facts. And so more recently, we worked as well on packaging data. So what material, what's the weight of the packaging of a plastic bottle, for example. So we get a lot of data to look into. And the projects for 2024 is to completely upgrade the research capacity of Open Food Facts, and is to broaden the project because we started in France 10 years ago. Now the website and the app is available in more than 40 languages, and we are in many countries, but there's still some efforts to develop local communities. So yeah, thank you again, data.europa. This is a great opportunity for us to showcase our work and to showcase our work to more countries than just France. So that's really nice. So in short, yeah, Open Food Fact is a database of food products and it's crowdsourced. So it's a bit like Wikipedia. Anyone can join in and add information, add products, edit ingredient lists, nutritional tables, everything. And today we have a bit more than 3 million products all over the world. So yeah, we're mostly present in Europe, a little bit in US, but most of our activity is in Europe so far. So the key, the fundamentals of the project is that we are open source and open data. So the way it works is everyone can join in and add data. So it's going to be consumers, people visiting our website or our app, but also food manufacturers themselves. So that's part of my job, is to talk with the food retailers and the food manufacturers to try to convince them to share product data with in our database. And there's also people that can contribute to our database is other mobile application that reuse Open Food Facts to run their own services, but they also send us back some more fresh data thanks to the contribution of their users. So this is how we enrich the database. And then once the database is constituted, it's being used by consumers, startup, project scientists, journalists, anyone that is having an interest in food data. And so, yeah, we like this cycle where people can use and contribute. We believe this is the future for digital projects. Maybe let's not spend too much time on this, but these are the 4 levers to improve the data quality of our database. So we have a strong community that check the data. They're like moderators. We use a lot of machine learning. We have automatic checks to check the quality of the data and identify when there are incoherences. And we also work with the professionals, so the food manufacturers themselves, with the Pro platform. So this increases the chances that the data is correct. Okay, so for consumers, what exactly does it do concretely? So you can download the app and scan the barcode of products and then get information like the Nutri-Score, the Eco-Score, and you can compare products directly on your mobile while you're in supermarkets. You can also enter your personal preferences. So if you're diabetic or gluten intolerant, you could set all this directly in the app. And then Open Food Facts compute a percentage of matching between the food and your diet. So you'll get personal scores. And the key feature is that we can compute the Nutri-Score and the Eco-Score, even if they're not printed on pack on the products. So that's why most people use our app. And they get to learn about labels, additives. It's quite complete if you're into nutrition. And the Eco-Score, we talked about it already. Then Open Food Fact is also useful for food manufacturers or producers themselves. So as I mentioned, we have a platform dedicated for food manufacturers. So it's a bit like a mini Open Food Fact for themselves, where they can import data and do benchmark, compare their products to all the products of the market of the same category, for example. So we are really working hard to try to have an impact on the food offer and try to convince food manufacturers to improve their recipe, reduce the salt, reduce the sugar, reduce the fat. So we provide them some some tools in order to improve the formulation. So, for example, we have this recommendation where we gonna scan all their portfolio and say, okay, we've identified 12 products for which if you reduce minimally the quantity of sugar, then the Nutri-Score will go from D to C, or change the letter. So we're trying to push them forward as much as possible, all the product optimization to nudge them into creating healthier products for the consumers. Something I haven't mentioned yet is also that we, as an open source database, we are reused by many other mobile apps in the world. So it's about 200 projects today in the world that are sourcing their information from Open Food Facts. So this means that, for food manufacturers, once they upload their data in Open Food Facts, they also project good data on all these other 200 projects. And so today we have about 3,000, almost 3,000 brands that are contributing to Open Food Facts. So we're really happy about that. We also provide some tools to visualize the food products. So you can put a lot of criteria and filters on how you want to visualize information. And so I highly invite you to go check on world.openfoodfact.org and play with the graph. There's a lot of stuff you could do. Then about our impact, I'm going to go quickly because I'm aware the time is running. But so as I mentioned, we started in France, but still we're slowly developing a global community in the world. Today is more than 20,000 contributors that have entered data at some point. So we see that food is very interesting for a lot of people. It's what we love to do every day, eating. 3 million products, a lot of projects reusing our work, not only mobile apps, but also researchers, students, state agencies. We work quite often with state agency, health agency as well, at the governments. And we have about 3 million unique visitors every month. More and more products, year after year. And one of the fun thing that we like to do, and one of the, I would say, use of Open Food Fact is that it allows you to understand the way products are made in different countries. So for example, we found out that the Fanta had a very different composition across different European countries. So we really want to, through this project, we want to raise questions from customers as well, like, is this normal? What can we do to make sure that we have a bit more control in the food offer as consumers? And in order to do that, we need more information and more transparency. Now to projects. So because we have a lot of people, so the team, the employees of Open Food Fact, we are 10 people, but we also have a large community of volunteers of about 300 people. So everyone comes with their own interest and their own desire to contribute to the project. So which means that it can go in all directions sometimes, but it's great to see a dynamic community like this. So I've only selected the top projects that we're going to work on in 2024. but one of them is the development of the new formula of the Nutri-Score. Depending on where you live, you may have heard of this, but the formula has been improved by the team of scientists that are working on it. And so we've implemented it in our app and website to better inform, and we made some extra effort on the pedagogy as well, trying to not only compute the score, but also explain why, what has changed, and why this score is better. So this involves as well that we made some tools to understand the difference between the previous Nutri-Score and the new one. So we have some tools to understand which Nutri-Score have changed, new versus old. So we could see with this graph, for example, that the new Nutri-Score is a bit more strict, and many products have been more penalized, but it's for the best for the society, so we can make better decisions. So this is the kind of stuff we can do with the database. Then another big project that is gonna get us busy in 2024 is the Open Prices project. So we figured that people wanted more information about food products, but now with the inflation, there was a lot of interest about the price of products. But we've always been limited because it's an enormous quantity of data points, because the product in my local supermarket and your local supermarket, even if we're in the same country, is going to change, and it's going to change every day. So it's quite difficult to track. But the community was so motivated that we managed to find a technical solution to store all this data. And Open Prices is already available. So you can, so it's like a side app to Open Food Fact. You can enter prices, and in order to enter a price that is valid, we want a proof. So either a photo of the label or a photo of your receipt ticket. So yeah, the proof we figured is important, otherwise people can enter anything, and we don't want that. So we could see here, for example, on this pasta linguine, we already have, it only shows 9 price, but there's probably a lot. And we could see that the variation is quite significant, like from 1.97 to 1.15, and it's in the same city. So it's like interesting information. And yeah, we set up the challenge to build the Nutella price index. So please join in and enter all the Nutella prices. So yeah, we find a lot of interest in this project, because price, of course, is one of the key factors for buying food, especially in these times. So we think that if this data can be public, it will be helpful for everyone. I mentioned the proof earlier. So this is an example of an image that could be considered as proof. So you upload this in the database, and we consider that your data entry is valid. Now, a third project. So most of you maybe don't know the current look of our website, so maybe it's not adding so much, it's not so interesting, but imagine that we don't have all the left panel today, and it's only a search bar where people enter butter or whatever they're interested in learning about. So in 2024, we're going to add all the panel on the left, enabling people to put criteria, filters, and have a much more enjoyable research experience, which is quite interesting when you're a database, I think. And then last slide, and I hope I'm okay with time. This is also something we are working on, but it's quite a big thing to be pushing. So we've made the Open Food Fact database, but now a lot of people are asking if we're going to diversify and deal with other vertical projects. So this year we're going to focus on Open Products Facts, which is going to be a database for all the products of your daily life, like a water bottle, smartphones, a chair, a bath, anything you can think of. And the goal will be to help consumers to extend the life of their object. So, for example, we'll be able to store user manual on the product sheets, explain how to discard an object, how to give it to your local community, how to recycle it. The goal is to also be able, as a consumer, to create a digital twin of your possessions, so that you can take care of them in a better way. We also plan to work on Open Beauty Facts, which is database about cosmetic and beauty products. So this is already running. And Open Pet Food Facts, which is a bit less of a priority, but it's still in our plan, maybe more for 2025, for animal food. And that's it. So if you want more information, or if you want to join the community, I could put the link of our Slack. Is where everyone discuss. Even if it's just to come and say hi and discover what we do, it's perfectly fine. You don't need to volunteer. And I'll put my email, so if you have any question, we're happy to help. And don't hesitate to add me on LinkedIn as well.
Right, thank you, Manon, for this interesting talk about Open Food Facts. And I saw some fun responses to what you discovered when it comes to the Fanta, the differences, for instance. Well, my girlfriend is Portuguese, and we often have discussions that in Portugal the food is different than in the Netherlands, and apparently so it is true. So thanks for the presentation. I think both use cases, so the Open Food Facts, but also the UniversiDATA-lab, give a very interesting overview or deep dive on the reuse cases that were in the Use Case Observatory. And so let's see, there were some questions that were raised throughout the meeting. Let me get them here. So I mistakenly mentioned the name of the project from Italy, VisIME. Let me check it. Maybe that's to answer the first question. First question is, let's see. VisIME 360 is coming from Italy indeed. Yeah. Another question is, I wonder if some of the use cases didn't answer anymore or don't continue developing because of a lack of funding. Therefore, I'm curious to hear how two presenters ensure sustainable funding. Oh, that's an interesting one. Maybe to you, Manon, to redirect the question. How about funding? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it is, of course, the challenging topic, fundings for open source project. So on our hand, we try to diversify as much as possible all the sources of fundings, because we were in a situation a few years ago where we had one funder, but he was funding 90% of the budget. And this could become risky, because if they decide suddenly to stop, then you're in difficulties, especially because recently we recruited a few more people. So yeah, I would recommend to try to diversify as much as possible. And to give you an example, on our side, the source of funds is coming from the European projects. that represent a third of our budget. So we spend a lot of time applying, developing our network to be invited in consortium or to take part or to create consortium, I guess. So that's a third. The second third is coming from public institutions. So for example, the Ministry of Health is funding us, the French Ministry of Health. We also have the French Ministry of Ecological Transition that's giving us money, but this is funding directly projects. It's not funding the general activity. So we always have to do reporting and develop specific features extra. So yeah, first Europe, second public funds, and the last one is coming from foundations, so philanthropic foundations, organization like google.org or the Mozilla Foundation, OVH is hosting the server part. So technological philanthropic foundation. And we are 100% independent from the food industry. It's one of our red line. And we have a bit of donations from the public, but this represents, maybe 5%. It's difficult, Okay.
Right, thanks for your elaboration, Manon. Juan Jesus, could you maybe also elaborate a little bit on the funding side?
Yes. Well, on our side, UniversiDATA is a commercial project. That is, universities pay a small monthly fee for the services included in the project. And from on the university side, one of the key objectives of the project is to ensure its sustainability by being affordable. I mean, we try not to burden universities with big financial or workload demands. We assume almost the full workload of publishing open data ourselves.
Okay, thanks. And maybe to stay with your use case now, Juan Jesus, there were some questions asked about the analysis that you showed. Are these analyses recurrent?
Well, no one, yes. Some of them are fixed analysis using specific data sets that are not repeated when new data is released, okay? But in the case of the retirement forecast and the budget viewer, yes, they are dynamic applications that read UniversiDATA's catalog in real time and perform the analysis on all the available data in real time also.
Okay. And then maybe a question about the tools that you use. One of the questions is, what tool do you use for the representation of your budget data?
Okay. All analysis and all applications in UniversiDATA have been developed from scratch using the R language. Officially, it is known, I think, as the R project for statistical computing. To be more specific, we use the Shiny library for web applications and Plotly, the Plotly library for most of the graphs. I can put the links in the chat if anyone is interested.
Yeah, please do so, sure. And then maybe the last question, do you have exchange abroad Spain and maybe even across Europe with other university about this data?
No, the project currently has a national scope within Spain. However, we are aware that universities from other countries are using UniversiDATA's datasets mainly for teaching and research resources.
Okay. All right, thanks. That were the questions that were addressed to you, Juan Jesus. So now over to Manon on Open Food Facts. Well, one of the questions was, what is the name of the app? But that is Open Food Facts, right? And you entered already some of the answers in the chat, if I'm not mistaken. Another question was, can the app provide you with personalized suggestions based on eating habits or trends?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Yes, so we have about, I don't know, maybe 40 parameters where you can say, I am for me, it's important that there's not too much sugar in my diet, or not too much salt, or not too much fat. We have all the stuff that is related to allergies. So again, you have maybe about 40 ingredients that could be allergenic. Then you could also set the importance you give to the environmental impact. So this can also be a criteria. The level of food processing. So yeah, it goes quite deep in the personalization. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question right.
I believe so. I think so, yes.
But about eating habits, yeah, I guess, yeah. So it's not only people with health conditions, but it's also for people that have preferences, which is more light, I guess.
And then maybe a question about the personalized suggestion also raises a question about data protection for the consumer side. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So we don't store any information about the personal data. I'm not a specialist on legal issues, but I know that this is one of our key selling points compared to other apps, is that we don't do anything with the data. It's all anonymized, and you can be. I mean, as an open source project and open data project, we are quite aware of all these issues, and of course, we are doing the things the best we can.
Cool. Then the last question is also for you, Manon. I think it's a long set of questions, actually. Can you say a little bit more on how you work with manufacturers and how you manage the data input from them? For example, how do you find new manufacturers who could contribute to your data? How do you make sure they keep data up to date and add new products? Can you elaborate a little bit on this angle?
Yeah. So the first thing is that we have this platform dedicated to food producers. So it's a bit like the back office of Open Food Facts. So this is on the how. So they can upload spreadsheets, or they can we can build a connection and have like a SFTP transfer of data. So with some of the food manufacturers, we receive data every night, and it's automated for big manufacturers like Carrefour, Nestle, Unilever, all these big guys who change their portfolio often. We build automations.
Okay.
So this is on the how, and then how we connect with them. So it's me and my colleague Charlotte, with two of us, and we are going to food fairs, food events, collect a maximum of business cards, write emails, do phone calls, and reach out and try to convince them. So it takes a lot of time, but that's how we do. Then we don't have any formal contract, or like the partnership is really just talking over the phone, and they say, okay, we can share the data, and then they upload. But it's quite simple.
Okay.
And sometimes it's difficult to convince them because the decision is to be taken internally, and we don't have that much power to make the decision. But what helps them to decide is when they see other food manufacturers or other retailers do the share data with Open Food Facts. They feel a bit of a threat, so they're like, okay, we're going to share data as well. So we definitely see the snowball effect. At least in France now, it's the food manufacturers that come to us directly. In other country, we still have to go and reach out. But we know that it's going to, at some point, there's going to be the tipping point, and the food manufacturer will come to us.
Okay, cool. I think that we almost answered all the questions. I think along the funding line, any attempt to observe the economical or social impact of these uses. Let's see to whom this question was asked and if I understand it correctly. Let me see. So I think it is 11:15. Maybe it was for me. The question has been raised by Gerard Perron. Along the line of funding, any attempt to observe the economical or social impact of these uses. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the question so that I make sure that I understood it correctly? I see someone is typing. In the meantime, I think we could get the slides back and work towards the end of the webinar. But of course, we also need to address this final question. Having better impact measures will help you getting funding. Ah, okay. That's an interesting one. How do you look at this? Maybe for you, Juan Jesus or Manon. Well, let's start with Juan Jesus. Having a better impact measure, will that help you getting funding, or in your case, a better way in to the universities?
Yes, of course. In fact, the goal of all this effort is impact. It's difficult to measure the impact. We made some design decisions that had some side effects that make it more difficult to measure the impact. The main one is that we decided not to require any kind of registration to our users. We didn't want to put any barrier to do anything at all in our portal. So everything is freely available with no requirement for registering or logging or whatever. So you can use the applications, read the articles, download the catalog, download the data set. You can write comments, you can fill forms, you can do everything in our portal without, in an anonymous way. It's very good for our users. It's very, very easy for them. It puts no barriers for anyone, but it makes us blind in most of the users, and we depend on them to freely tell us what they come from, what they want to do when they come to this portal, how are they using the data, how is the data making value for them, etc., etc. So we have three ways of trying to get to this information, which is very, very important. And of course, it's a selling point. And it's the main point of the project is to have impact. So every time we get some requests for assistance, technical assistance, or some questions about the data, about the semantics or whatever, we try to raise the occasion to ask what are you using the data for, what is your use case, etc. Also, from time to time, some of the users put comments, anonymous, most of them, that give us interesting hints about how they are using the data. And finally, the datathon, the annual datathon, is a very good source of sometimes very creative reuses of data, and it's one of the main sources of ideas where we can see the very interesting and diverse ways that these data that universities are opening can be used for unimaginable ways that we didn't were possible. So that's more or less the situation.
All right. Thanks, Manon. Thanks, Juan Jesus, for the presentation. We now reach the end of this webinar. So for the ones who are still in the room, and that's a lot, please stay up to date on our activities. And if you're interested, there are 2 upcoming webinars. So one is scheduled for the 12th of July, the same time. And this webinar will be on data controllership and anonymization. So it will explore how non-personal data can be reclassified as personal data, and the current methods of assessing controllership and joint controllership, and the impacts of these factors on open data sharing. So if you're interested in that one, please subscribe. And then also on the 19th of July, just before the holiday season starts, Data Spaces, experience from the European Mobility Data Space. The webinar will provide an in-depth exploration of the European Mobility Data Space with a particular emphasis on the railways sector. So stay tuned, join our next webinars, and for this webinar, please take a couple of minutes, will be 2 to 3 minutes. So take your mobile phone, use the QR code and share with us what you thought about this webinar. So your feedback will be highly appreciated, and we will use it to improve our Data.europa Academy even more. Thanks for your time. Enjoy your day and have a great Friday.